The gathering storm, the void between stars, had never seen anything like the Courtney fleet. 1,200 vessels moved through space like a living constellation, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of power beyond imagination. Each ship was grown rather than built, crafted from living coral that had been shaped and bred over centuries to become the perfect war machine. High Commander. Zaylan stood in the neural chamber of his flagship, the Warship. His 8 arms moved in graceful patterns as he communicated with the ship's consciousness. The vessel responded to his thoughts, its living walls shifting color to show its eagerness for battle. Around him, the bridge crew of the Courtney worked, in perfect harmony, their pale blue skin glowing with excitement. "Status report," Zaylan commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 47 worlds. Sub-Commander Thyak approached, his movements fluid and precise. "High Commander, we are now 2 days from the target system. Our scouts have confirmed the 3rd planet harbors the species that calls itself human. Their technology appears even more primitive than our initial assessments suggested." Zaylan's 4 eyes focused on the tactical display that grew from the ship's living floor. It showed the Sol system in perfect detail, with tiny markers indicating human activity. Most of it was concentrated around the 3rd planet, with scattered outposts on nearby worlds. "Show me their defenses," he ordered. The display shifted, highlighting the human military assets. Zaylan studied them with the calm confidence of a predator examining prey. Small orbital platforms surrounded their homeworld. Tiny ships moved between the planets, their energy signatures laughably weak compared to Courtney technology. They still use chemical propulsion for most of their vessels, Thyak reported. Their largest ships appear to be cargo haulers. "We have detected only one vessel in deep space, and it moves with the sluggish pace of their primitive technology." Zaylan felt satisfaction flow through him. This would be another easy conquest. The Courtney way was simple. Arrive in overwhelming force, demonstrate superior power, and accept surrender. Most species chose to submit rather than face extinction. Those who didn't learned quickly. What do their communications tell us about their military capability? He asked. "They broadcast openly on radio frequencies, High Commander. Our linguists have been studying their signals for months. They speak of conflicts between their own kind, using weapons that explode with chemical reactions. They know nothing of energy manipulation or biological engineering. Their ships are built from dead metal and powered by controlled explosions." The High Commander's satisfaction grew. Dead metal ships were easy to destroy. The Courtney had faced such primitive technology before, on worlds where evolution had stagnated. A few precisely placed bioplasma strikes would disable their vessels. And then the humans would have no choice but to surrender. "Very well," Zaylan decided. "We will follow standard protocol. Arrive in formation, demonstrate our power, and offer them the choice: surrender and serve the Empire, or face extinction. Begin acceleration to combat velocity." The order flowed through the neural network that connected all Courtney ships. 1,200 vessels began to move faster, their living hulls rippling with increased energy flow. The fleet formation shifted into the traditional attack pattern, a flower of death that had brought victory to the Courtney for over 1,000 years. Far ahead in the Sol system, a different kind of ship moved through the darkness. The UES Prometheus was humanity's first true deep space warship, a vessel that represented everything humans had learned about warfare in the centuries since. They had first looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. Captain Sarah Chen walked through the corridors of her ship, her footsteps echoing off the reinforced titanium walls. The Prometheus was not beautiful in the way that nature was beautiful. It was functional, efficient, and deadly. Every surface was covered with sensors, weapons, or armor. It looked like what it was, a machine built for war. Chen entered the bridge, where her crew was monitoring the strange signals they had been detecting for the past week. The bridge was cramped and filled with screens and control panels. Nothing like the spacious command centers shown in entertainment videos. This was a working warship, designed by people who understood that in real combat, every second mattered. "Report," she ordered. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb, her first officer, turned from the communications station. He was a veteran of the Titan rebellions, a man who had seen real combat and understood its costs. "Captain, we're still receiving those unusual transmissions from the edge of the system. They're not random noise. There's definitely an intelligence behind them." Chen nodded. She had been expecting this day for years. Humanity's expansion into space had been driven by the knowledge that they were probably not alone in the universe. The Prometheus had been built specifically for the possibility of first contact, especially if that contact proved hostile. "What's the analysis from the xenolinguistics team?" she asked. Dr. James Park, the ship's science officer, looked up from his console. He was young for such a responsible position, but his expertise in alien communication theory had made him invaluable to the mission. "Captain, we're detecting patterns that suggest a complex language, but it's unlike anything in our databases. The mathematical structures are fascinating, but what concerns me is the sheer volume of transmissions. Whatever is sending these signals, there are a lot of them." Chen felt the familiar tightness in her stomach that came before battle. She had commanded ships in 3 different conflicts, and she knew the signs. "How long until we have visual contact?" "At current approach vectors, approximately 8 hours, reported Lieutenant Sophia Reyes from the navigation station. She was the best pilot in the fleet, capable of making the massive Prometheus dance through space like a fighter craft. "All hands, this is the captain," Chen announced over the ship's communication system. "We are approaching potential first contact with an alien species. All departments are to prepare for possible hostile contact. This is not a drill." Throughout the ship, the crew began their preparations. In the armory, Chief Gunner Tom Bradley supervised the loading of the ship's revolutionary weapons systems. The Prometheus carried no energy weapons, no plasma cannons or laser batteries. Instead, it was armed with something far more primitive and far more deadly: kinetic weapons that fired solid projectiles at incredible velocities. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Anna Volkov monitored the fusion reactors that powered the ship. The human approach to space travel was brute force engineering. Massive engines that could push enormous amounts of mass through space at high speeds. It was not elegant, but it was effective. In the medical bay, Dr. Helen Vasquez prepared for casualties. She had served on military ships for 15 years and knew that first contact with an alien species would likely involve violence. She hoped she was wrong, but her supplies were ready. As the hours passed, the alien signals grew stronger. The Prometheus moved to intercept, its massive bulk cutting through space like a metal predator. On the bridge, the crew watched their screens as the unknown contacts grew closer. "Captain," Webb called out, "I'm reading multiple contacts. Large contacts. They're in some kind of formation." Chen studied the tactical display. The alien vessels were arranged in a pattern that looked almost organic, like the petals of a flower. She had never seen anything like it, But her instincts told her it was a battle formation. Number? She asked. I'm counting over 1,000 contacts, Captain. They're all large, and they're all heading directly for us. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. Humanity's first contact with an alien species, and they were outnumbered more than 1,000 to 1. Sir, Dr. Park said. Quietly, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the alien fleet. Whatever they're planning, it's going to be big. Chen looked at her crew. These were good people, the best humanity had to offer. They had trained for this moment their entire careers, even though most of them had never expected it to actually happen. All hands, battle stations, she ordered. Red alert. This is not a drill. The Prometheus transformed from an exploration vessel into a weapon of war. Gun turrets rotated toward the enemy. Armor plating slid into place over vital systems. The crew took their positions at combat stations. Throughout the ship, on the alien flagship, High Commander Zaylan felt the human's ship through his vessel's sensors. It was exactly as primitive as he had expected. A crude metal construct powered by controlled explosions. The humans had built their ship like a fortress, all thick armor and obvious weapons. It was the work of a species that understood only brute force. One ship, he mused, to Sub-Commander Thyak. They send one ship against our entire fleet. Either they are incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Perhaps both, High Commander, Thyak replied. Should we attempt communication? Zaylan considered this. The Korthani preferred to offer surrender before battle, but this single human ship was hardly a threat. Still, protocol was protocol. Open a channel, he decided. Let us see what these primitives have to say. The biocommunication systems of the Korthani fleet reached out across space, sending a message in mathematical concepts that any intelligent species should understand. The message was simple. Surrender now, or be destroyed. On the Prometheus, the communications system detected the alien transmission. Dr. Park worked frantically to decode it, but the mathematical concepts were unlike anything in human experience. Captain, he reported, I'm getting something that looks like a demand. They want us to surrender. Chen allowed herself a cold smile. Signal back that this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Prometheus. We are here in peace, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. The message traveled back to the Korthani fleet, where it was analyzed by their finest linguists. The response was predictable. Confusion at the primitive nature of human communication, followed by amusement at their defiance. They refused to surrender, Thyak reported. They claim they come in peace, but will fight if necessary, High Commander. Zaylan felt his warlust rising. These humans were about to learn the price of defying the Korthani Empire. Very well, we will give them one demonstration of our power. Target an asteroid near their ship. Use enough force to vaporize it completely. They will see what happens to those who oppose us. The Korthani fleet began to glow brighter as energy flowed between the ships. They were preparing to fire a coordinated bioplasma burst that would turn solid rock into vapor. It was a display of power that had convinced dozens of species to surrender without firing a shot. On the Prometheus, the crew watched in fascination as the alien ships began to pulse with light. The patterns were beautiful, almost hypnotic, but Chen knew she was looking at weapons charging. They're powering up some kind of energy weapon, Webb reported. But they're not targeting us. They're aiming at the asteroid field nearby. Chen understood. It was a demonstration, a show of force designed to frighten them into surrender. She had seen similar tactics in human conflicts. The problem was that humans had never been particularly good at being frightened. "All hands, observe," she announced. "You are about to see alien weapons technology in action." The Corthoni fleet fired as one. A beam of concentrated bioplasma shot across space and struck a large asteroid. The rock, which had existed for billions of years, vanished in a flash of light and heat. Where there had been solid matter, now there was only glowing gas. On the alien flagship, Salen felt satisfaction as his demonstration worked exactly as planned. The humans would now understand the futility of resistance. He waited for their surrender signal. Instead, he received something unexpected. "Captain," Webb reported on the human ship, "they just vaporized a 20-kilometer asteroid. That's incredible firepower." Chen nodded. The alien weapons were impressive, but they had made a mistake. They had shown her exactly what they were capable of, and more importantly, they had shown her what they expected in return: fear and surrender. "Chief Bradley," she called to the weapons officer, "I want you to target the center of their formation. Load tube 1 with a standard tungsten penetrator. 1 round only." Bradley looked surprised. "Captain, we have thousands of rounds available. Shouldn't we use more firepower?" "1 round, Chief. They gave us a demonstration of their power. Now we'll give them one of ours." The Prometheus's main railgun rotated toward the alien fleet. The weapon was a marvel of human engineering, using magnetic acceleration to fire solid projectiles at incredible speeds. It was not elegant or sophisticated. It was simply a very advanced way of throwing rocks at enemies. "Asterisk target acquired," Bradley reported. "Tube 1 loaded and ready." Chen took a deep breath. She was about to make a decision that would change human history forever. Fire the railgun, fired with a sound like thunder. The tungsten penetrator, no larger than a telephone pole, shot out of the ship at 12% the speed of light. It covered the distance to the alien fleet in seconds. The projectile struck the lead Corthony ship with devastating effect. The living hull, which had been designed to deflect energy weapons, offered no resistance to solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The penetrator punched through the ship from front to back, creating a perfectly round hole. High Commander Zalen felt the death scream of his ship through the neural link. The pain was unlike anything he had ever experienced. His vessel, a living creature that had served the Empire for over a century, was dying, and he had no idea what had killed it. "Report," he screamed. "What happened?" His science officer, Vectel, was studying the sensor readings with growing confusion. "High Commander, I detect no energy discharge from the human ship. No plasma beam, no particle weapon, nothing. But our lead vessel is catastrophically damaged." Zip watched in horror as his ship began to drift, its bioluminescent patterns fading as life left its hull. "How is this possible? What kind of weapon produces no energy signature?" The answer came from an unexpected source. The human ship transmitted another message, this one in perfect Corthony. Mathematical language. Dr. Park had been studying their communications and had managed a partial translation. "This is Captain Chen of the UES Prometheus. You fired first." That was our response. "We do not wish to fight, but we will defend ourselves. Leave this system now, or face the consequences." The message was impossible to believe. The humans claimed to have weapons that could kill Corthony ships, but they were primitives who used dead metal and chemical explosions. It had to be some kind of trick. All ships, Zalen commanded, attack formation. Show these primitives what happens when they challenge the Korthani Empire. The alien fleet began to move, their elegant formations shifting into patterns of death. They had come expecting easy conquest, but the humans had just shown them that nothing in this system would be easy. On the Prometheus, Captain Chen watched the alien fleet approach and smiled grimly. They had expected her to surrender after seeing their demonstration of power. Instead, she had shown them that humans had their own ideas about warfare. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. Steel against living flesh, the Korthani fleet moved like a living thing through the void. 1,200 ships flowing in perfect coordination toward the lone human vessel. High Commander Zalen felt the collective rage of his fleet through the neural link that connected all Korthani warriors. One of their ships was dead, killed by a weapon they did not understand, and honor demanded vengeance. All ships, prepare for coordinated strike, Zalen commanded. These primitives have some kind of trick weapon, but they cannot stand against our combined might. The alien vessels began to glow brighter as they shared energy through connections. This was the Korthani way of war, overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. Their ships were not just machines. They were living weapons that could adapt and evolve in real time. Sub-Commander Thyak monitored the tactical display as the fleet approached optimal firing range. High Commander, the human ship is not retreating. They appear to be maintaining position. Zalen felt a moment of confusion. Every species they had encountered followed the same pattern. When faced with overwhelming force, they either surrendered or fled. The humans were doing neither. Perhaps they are paralyzed by fear, he suggested, or their primitive engines cannot move their crude ship quickly enough to escape. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Chen watched the alien fleet approach with the calm focus of a veteran warrior. She had fought in 3 major conflicts and countless smaller engagements, and she knew that panic was the greatest enemy of any commander. Distance to enemy fleet, she asked. 40,000 kilometers and closing, reported Lieutenant Reyes. They're maintaining formation speed, but their energy signatures are increasing. Chen nodded. The aliens were preparing for battle, but they were doing it in a way that revealed their fundamental misunderstanding of human warfare. They were approaching in a tight formation, presumably to concentrate their firepower. It was tactically sound against energy weapons, but it would prove catastrophic against kinetic bombardment. Chief Bradley, how many rounds do we have available? She asked. 4,000 tungsten penetrators, Captain, plus 500 explosive rounds and 300 specialized ammunition types. Chen smiled. The Prometheus had been designed specifically for this kind of fight. Human military doctrine had evolved around the assumption that any alien species they encountered would have superior technology. The solution was not to try to match their sophistication, but to use weapons they would not expect. Load all tubes with standard penetrators, she ordered. Prepare for rapid-fire sequence. Throughout the ship, the crew worked with practiced efficiency. The Prometheus was not just a warship. It was a statement of human military philosophy. Where other species might rely on energy shields and plasma weapons, humans had chosen the reliability of solid matter moving at incredible speeds. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Volkov monitored the fusion reactors as they ramped up to maximum power. The human approach to space combat was brute force. Massive engines, heavy armor, and weapons that could punch through anything. It was not elegant, but it was effective. Captain, Dr. Park called from the science station. I'm detecting coordinated Energy build-up across the enemy fleet. They're preparing for some kind of synchronized attack. Chen had expected this. The alien demonstration with the asteroid had shown her their preferred method of warfare, overwhelming energy bombardment. It was impressive, but it had one critical weakness. "All hands, prepare for enemy fire," she announced. "This is going to be intense." The Corthani fleet reached optimal range and fired as one. 1,200 bioplasma weapons discharged simultaneously, creating a beam of energy that could have destroyed a small moon. The combined firepower of the entire fleet focused on the single human ship. The blast was so intense that it lit up the darkness of space like a new star. The energy beam struck the Prometheus with the force of a natural disaster, testing every system on the ship. Emergency lights flickered as the energy absorption systems struggled to handle the massive input. "Shields holding," reported Lieutenant Commander Webb, "but they're down to 20% capacity." Chen felt the ship shake under the impact, but she was not surprised. The Prometheus had been designed to survive exactly this kind of attack. Human engineers had studied every form of energy weapon they could imagine and built their ship accordingly. "Damage report," she ordered. Reports came in from throughout the ship. The outer hull was scorched, but intact. The energy absorption systems had channeled most of the alien firepower into the ship's capacitors, where it could be used to power their own weapons. The Prometheus was hurt, but far from defeated. On the Corthani flagship, Zaylan stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ship had taken the combined firepower of his entire fleet and survived. Its energy signature was reduced, but it was still active. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "No ship can withstand that much concentrated bioplasma." "Science." Officer Vectel was analyzing the sensor data with growing confusion. "High Commander, the human ship appears to have absorbed most of our energy output. Their hull is constructed of materials I have never seen before." Zaylan felt a chill run through his nervous system. The humans were not behaving like any species the Corthani had encountered. They did not use energy weapons. They did not flee from superior force, and their ships could survive attacks that should have vaporized them. Sir Thyak reported, "The human ship is turning toward us. They appear to be preparing to engage." On the Prometheus, Captain Chen watched the alien fleet as they recovered from their massive energy discharge. Their ships were beautiful, she had to admit, but they had made a tactical error. They had shown her their maximum firepower, and she had survived it. "All weapons, target the center of their formation," she ordered. "Rapid fire sequence. Show them what human weapons can do." The Prometheus opened fire with everything it had. 24 railguns discharged in rapid succession, sending tungsten penetrators streaking across space at 12% light speed. The projectiles were invisible to the naked eye, but their effects were not. The first salvo struck the Corthani fleet like invisible hammers. The living ships, which had been designed to deflect and absorb energy weapons, offered no defense against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten penetrators punched through their hulls, as if they were made of paper. "High Commander." Zaylan felt the death screams of his ships through the neural link. The pain was overwhelming, but worse was the confusion. His vessels were dying, and he still could not understand how. Report, he screamed. "What is happening to our ships?" "High Commander," Vectel said, his voice shaking. "The humans are firing solid projectiles at incredible velocities. Our defensive systems are not designed to handle kinetic weapons." Zaylan watched in horror as more of his ships died. The human vessel was firing continuously, each shot claiming another Corthani life. The elegant formations that had conquered 47 worlds were being torn apart by primitive metal bullets. "Return fire," he ordered. "All ships, continuous." Bombardment. The surviving Courtenay ships began firing again, but their coordinated attack was broken. Individual ships discharged their weapons as quickly as they could recharge, creating a constant stream of energy beams toward the human vessel. Captain Chen felt the Prometheus shake under the bombardment, but she was not concerned. The alien weapons were powerful, but they were designed for single massive strikes. The continuous fire was actually less effective than their coordinated attack. "Energy levels steady," Webb reported. "Our absorption systems are handling the load." "Continue firing," Chen ordered. "Target their larger ships first." The battle developed into a test of endurance. The Courtenay fleet had superior numbers and energy weapons, but they were being systematically destroyed by weapons they had never encountered. The human ship was taking damage, but it was built to absorb punishment and keep fighting. Chief Bradley coordinated the weapons fire from the armory, gun crews, adjust targeting. Hit the ships that are still maneuvering. Dead ships can't fight back. The Prometheus continued its deadly work. Each railgun shot was a kill, punching through the living hulls of the alien ships and destroying their internal systems. The tungsten penetrators were too fast to intercept and too dense to deflect. Subcommander Thyak watched the tactical display with growing despair. "High Commander, we have lost over 300 ships. The human weapon appears to have unlimited ammunition." Zaylan felt the pain of every lost ship through the neural link. His fleet, which had been the pride of the Courtenay Empire, was being destroyed by a single primitive vessel. The humans were not fighting like civilized beings. They were using crude kinetic weapons that belonged in the Stone Age of warfare. "All ships close to melee range," he ordered desperately. "Their projectile weapons will be less effective at close distance." The surviving Courtenay ships began to accelerate toward the Prometheus, their living hulls rippling with increased energy flow. It was a desperate tactic, but Zaylan could see no other option. Captain Chen watched the alien ships approach and smiled grimly. "Their closing distance, perfect," Captain Webb asked, confused. "Load tubes with explosive rounds," Chen ordered. "When they get close, we'll give them a proper welcome." The Prometheus switched ammunition types as the alien ships closed in. The explosive rounds were designed for close-range combat, each one carrying enough destructive power to cripple a large vessel. The Courtenay fleet reached close range and began firing at maximum rate. Energy beams lanced out from hundreds of ships, creating a light show that would have been beautiful if it had not been so deadly. But the Prometheus was ready. The explosive rounds detonated among the alien fleet, each explosion creating a sphere of destruction that consumed everything within several kilometers. The tightly packed alien ships had no room to maneuver, and the explosions chained from one vessel to another. High Commander Zaylan felt the death of his fleet through the neural link. The pain was beyond description, but worse was the realization that he had been completely outmaneuvered. The humans had weapons for every range, tactics for every situation, and the will to use them without mercy. "All ships, retreat," he finally ordered. "Fall back to minimum safe distance." The surviving Courtenay ships, less than half of the original fleet, began to withdraw. They moved with the desperate speed of creatures fleeing a predator, their elegant formations forgotten in the face of annihilation. On the Prometheus, Captain Chen watched the alien fleet retreat and felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. She had won the battle, but the cost of victory was always high. Her ship was damaged, her crew was exhausted, and humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in the most violent way possible. "Cease fire," she ordered. "Let them go." "Captain," Webb asked, "shouldn't we pursue? We have them on." "The run," Chen shook her head. "We've made our point. They know now that humans are not easy prey. Sometimes it's better to let a defeated enemy carry the message home." The Corthoni fleet continued to retreat, their ships limping away from the battlefield. High Commander Zaylan stood in the neural chamber of his damaged flagship and tried to process what had happened. His fleet had been destroyed by a single primitive ship using weapons that his species had abandoned centuries ago. "High Commander," Sub-Commander Thyax said quietly, "what do we tell the Empire?" Zaylan considered the question. How could he explain that the mighty Cathani fleet had been defeated by creatures who threw metal objects at their enemies? How could he describe the shock of encountering a species that did not fight according to the accepted rules of civilized warfare? "We tell them the truth," he said finally. "The humans are not primitive. They are something far more dangerous. They are unpredictable." The report that reached the Corthony homeworld 3 weeks later would change everything. For the first time in their history, the Empire had encountered a species that could not be easily conquered. The humans had weapons that could kill Corthani ships, technology that could absorb their energy attacks, and most importantly, the will to fight against impossible odds. On Earth, Captain Chen's report created a similar stir. Humanity had won their first interstellar battle, but they had also learned that they were not alone in the universe. The galaxy was full of other species, some of whom saw humans as potential enemies. The Battle of the Prometheus would be remembered as the moment when humanity announced its presence to the galaxy. They had shown that they were not primitives to be conquered, but warriors to be respected. The crude metal ships and kinetic weapons that the aliens had dismissed as primitive had proven devastatingly effective. In the months that followed, both species would adapt to their new reality. The Cortheni would develop new weapons and tactics designed to counter human technology. The humans would build more ships like the Prometheus, preparing for the day when the aliens returned in greater numbers. But for now, there was peace. The Cortheni fleet had retreated to lick their wounds, and the humans had time to prepare for whatever came next. The galaxy was vast, and there were surely other species out there who would test humanity's resolve. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus as it returned to Earth, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed quite so distant. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and they had done so with their heads held high and their weapons ready. The aliens had never seen a human warship before. Now they would never forget one.